So let's start out with really more of the core of what we're doing most of the time, and candidates that are pretty much high value to CMI nearly all of the time. So I think the easiest way to start with that would actually be looking at, for example, salespeople from Oracle. Um, Oracle is probably the largest employer of relevant candidates for us. Doesn't mean everyone from Oracle is perfect, but so I pulled up through Oracle, and actually going backwards just to be clear, I guess the step by step is first typing Oracle up in the top, and then choosing Oracle as a company, and then clicking on this link right here that says see all employees. I don't know if you're already familiar enough with LinkedIn that you already knew about that. Okay, and then again, when we're going with core space, I want to go to location and then come down and choose the DC area as our location. So that still gives you 2,477 people, and to kind of bring that down to something a little bit more manageable, which probably, by the way, a lot of those people are going to be relevant to us, but I might now want to hit the advanced button right here and go into title and put in the word account. And that's because there are account managers and account executives are the most common titles for sales. So it's already got Oracle and it's already got Washington, D.C. area, and I just went into title, put the word account, and I'm going to hit search again, and it goes from 2477 to 523. So these people here are highly likely to be strong candidates for us. If you look at some of these backgrounds, so the core space of who's the most placeable for us will shift somewhat over long periods of time, but federal software sales professionals are over the last couple years anyway, they're in demand 100% of the time for us. So we have clients who are looking for strong federal software salespeople all the time. And so looking at this second guy down here, Joshua Robinson, I actually don't, I'm not connected to him. I don't recognize his name. But so now going back, so he is St. Augustine's College, intern Oracle, so leasing agent. So it looks like he's started his working career in 2010. That's actually a really good thing because, in the sweet spot between about 5 and 20 years is when people are considered to be experienced but still have the fire in the belly. And sometimes there's concerns when you get much further down the career that they're not as much of a hunter, aren't going to have the same energy level, competitiveness, and so on. And in the federal world anyway, less than 5 years, the concern will be, have they gotten to know the market space real well or not yet. But this is a person who looks potentially very placeable for us. So you've got here, by the way, this first role that says business development consultant, and you can still see all this, right? Is it working the way it's supposed to? Okay. So for this guy, he's got this first role that says business development consultant. This is not always the case, but generally speaking, that title, like business development representative is what that's often called, or sometimes sales development representative. In this case at Oracle, they call it business development consultant. So you see here in the first bullet, it says create and uncover sales opportunities in both new and existing, whatever. This person's really identifying leads and then scheduling appointments for full cycle salespeople to take over those leads and meet with those prospects and try to close a deal with them. And so then when he moves from this business development consultant to senior business development consultant, that really to me just means that he became a more senior person who's still not doing full cycle sales. He's still doing only lead generation at that point. Now, when you move up to business intelligence account manager, that to me would mean that he's actually closing. So he's in a full cycle sales role. And above that, federal account manager for Fusion middleware, and then above that, DoD public sector. All of that starting in January 2014, it looks like he's doing full cycle sales. So first things first, I'm definitely going to want to connect with this guy. He looks very relevant to us, and if whether he accepts my invitation or not, if I choose to do it sooner and I want to, well, first of all, we have this contact out. Can you see this part up here to the right that I'm hovering over? So that's that thing that I had mentioned. So if it's working properly, then right here I can just click on show, and now I've got his Yahoo. Sorry? Contact Out is its own company. So I think that those two are either exactly the same or really, really similar. And Contact Out is free, but as you see up here, there's this 146 credits thing. Well, that there you get a certain number of credits, and then I haven't gotten to zero yet, but I'm sure that when you get to zero, they're like, all right, well now you have to pay. I'm guessing that's the case. So with a guy like this, once he accepts, then I'll be able to click right here to say send a message, right? But until then, I got his email address from Contact Out. So a really common kind of template email I'm going to use with a person like this is to, all right, so I'm going to put his email here, and then I have, all right, thanks for connecting. Then I have a template here under quick parts. You click on insert and then quick parts, and then I've got some choices that I've created in here, and this one following up. So thanks for accepting my invite. Your background's very relevant to what we do and recruit for. And we have clients looking for people like you right now, so let me know if you'd ever like to chat. So I'm just going to go ahead and send that. So for me, I'm taking a pretty, I guess, casual approach with that. So I pretty much just, when I see interesting people, I go ahead and send that, and that's kind of the end of it for me. For you, you're going to probably want to take a little bit more of an organized approach, and you might even want to consider having a spreadsheet. Let's not make it too hard in the beginning, but you might want to consider having a spreadsheet where you're actually keeping a list of names of people that you reach out, even if it's first initial last name or something. So like J Robinson Oracle or something like that, so that you can choose people that you're going to go back and follow up with, 3, 4, 5 times if it seems like it makes sense. So anyhow, so the most, kind of the core space candidates for us, generally when I talk about that, I'm thinking of people who have between 1 and 10, I guess, years of sales experience, preferably technology related. So this guy fits right into that. He happens to be federally focused, but he's got something like 6 years of sales experience. He started out in what looks like a lead generation capacity, and then moved into full cycle sales and moved into federal sales. He's a great candidate for us. So the top core space that I typically describe is that the 1 to 10 years of business sales, preferably technology related. The next core space for us is federal software sales, and federal software salespeople, to be an enterprise federal software salesperson generally means that they probably have between 10 and 30 years of total experience, and still doing sales and are still a I guess active, aggressive salesperson. Again, there's exceptions to every rule, but once you get well beyond 30 years of total experience, that person's probably not as excited about having a quota and targeting new business all the time. The person who's 10, 15, 20 years in could be plenty excited about that. So so those are kind of number 1 and number 2. So 1 to 10 years, it didn't have to be Oracle and it didn't have to be federal, but he fits within that. He also fits within the second, which is federal software sales. So this guy looks like a great candidate on paper. So going back to someone else on that page, whoops. Let me just get back here. And by the way, as you have questions, just interrupt me whenever, because I might say some things that are less kind of common sense or common knowledge than I realize, just because I've been dealing with technology salespeople and nothing else forever. Okay, so here we got a second person, Jacqueline Nguyen. So I recognize the name. We've worked with her in the past. But so you scroll down. So she is Virginia Tech 2010. So she's in that 1 to 10 year range. It's technology centric, Aperture, Dell, Oracle. Now she happens to be federal. Once again, great candidate for us. So that's certainly someone that you'd want to reach out to. And again, in the beginning, we want to focus more on you saying, some version of this is who we are and what we do, and we have clients looking for people like you all the time, including right now. Let me know if you have any interest in chatting, right? As opposed to, we're working on this very specific position. Would you want to hear more about it? That's something we'll probably shift to later. Um, so I'll probably look at one more Oracle person, and then I'm going to do a different kind of search just to change it up a little bit. But yes, go ahead. That's correct. So So we have a list of people that we've placed, and if they're still with that company, then we certainly wouldn't want to reach out to them right now. Um, and that's actually a pretty finite and straightforward list. The thing that we'll have to do to make that an effective list is have not only the list of people that we've placed, but somehow segment that out between we've placed them, and by the way, they're still at the company that we placed them at, so please don't contact them. That actually did happen a week or two ago, so it happens once in a blue moon. But that will be important, because that's a lot easier than giving you a list of our current clients, because our current clients shift around all the time. So who our current clients are that are actively looking today, half of them will be the same 60 days from now, and half of them will be totally new and different clients. So that's a lot more of a fluid process. But who we have placed in the past is nice and straightforward. So I'm going to make a note right now to figure out how to do that in the most efficient manner. List of prior placements. Okay. Okay. And how do you guys address that in the company that you're in now, by the way? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's a low enough volume, it's easy. So, and that's the other thing. What I would tell you is that if you told me a name of a person and we had placed them, the odds that I will recognize the name and either know that we placed them or think that we might have, and then be able to go and look that up really quickly, the odds of that are actually really good. The problem is that doesn't help you, because we want to get to a point where you're just reaching out to people, not checking with me each time beforehand. But yeah, so I'll work on that a little bit internally versus brainstorming while I have you on the phone about it right now, and come back to you with something. So this guy right here, Keenan Armstrong, so he's another one I go back to. Virginia Tech, it doesn't show his year of graduation, but it looks like Territory Associate 2007. So it looks like he's 10 years into his career. He spent a couple years at Carasoft. So this right here, Riverbend Nursery, for example. And this is where we'll get into some valuable information for you. Let's pretend that someone graduated from Virginia Tech in 2007 or 2006, and their first job is at this Riverbend Nursery, which I'm guessing is something like plants, like some kind of, I don't know, maybe they're like a plant distributor, like they grow plants and bushes and stuff and then sell them or something like that. That's what I think of when I'm thinking of that nursery word right there, and they say manage contracts with John. Yep. So if that person graduated, did that job for 1.5 years, and then was looking for a job, and that's their entire career, it was 1.5 years there, and they graduated a year and a half before, and you found them, is that person a worthwhile candidate? The answer, if they're in the DC area, is definitely yes. So the further you go down the experience chain, the less it matters that they've sold technology, because we have technology clients that will happily. Part of the reason is that the base salary, this guy's not going to have a huge base salary requirement. So we'll have technology clients that will be happy to bring that guy in and train him on technology because he's not that expensive. Yeah, exactly. And then, but you keep moving up, and let's pretend that this same guy was not there for a year and a half. He was there for 8.5 years. He's now much less appealing to our clients. They're like, oh, he looks like he's like a nursery plant guy. That's not what we need. Yep. So it's like the further you go down the experience chain, the less it matters what type of sales they've been doing. And the further you go up, the more years, the more it has to fit within our core sweet spot, which is generally speaking technology sales. And so, the easiest way for me to try to put it would be to say less than 5 years, lots of flexibility. More than 5 years, less flexibility. right? So now this guy changed over to Carahsoft, which is a technology reseller, so that's relevant. Then he switched to Oracle, which is very relevant, and he's got senior account manager. We can't tell right now if he's in commercial or federal sales. Nothing in here tells you that he's a high producer, but it doesn't tell you whether he's calling on federal or commercial. Doesn't matter though. Whether he's commercial or federal, this is a guy that we would want to talk to. So if he was willing to talk, we'd want to talk to him, period. And then, we'd have to figure out what his money is, what his motivations are, and, what things he would and wouldn't want in a next position that would tell us whether or not he's placeable right this second. But if he was willing to talk and expressed any interest in making a job change, we'd absolutely want to talk to this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to him right now just to, yep. Mm-hmm. Definitely, you should almost pretend that doesn't exist and go ahead and connect to them, because the fact that Colin or I is connected, there's a chance that we've spoken to them recently, but there's an even better chance that no one here has spoken to them in the last 6 months to a year. And if none of us have talked to them in the last 6 months, then they're open season. Yep. And not only that, I'm first level connections with over 10,000 people. So I'm actually first level connections with a whole lot of people that I've never spoken with one time. And if you ask them who I was, they'd be like, I have no idea. I've never heard of that guy. so, so yep, totally fine to go ahead and connect with people that Colin and I are connected to. And then of course some of them we're going to be like, oh yeah, I've worked with that guy. I'm working with him right now, or I've worked with him 4 times and I know that guy very, very well, and what have you. But that's going to be less, something certainly a lot less than 50% of the time. All right, so now doing another different search. Let's say I'm going into advanced and I'm gonna use that word. No, actually, I'm gonna go much more basic right now, and I'm gonna say sales for keywords, and I'm gonna put the area of DC. So when I put in our office here, 22182, that's a Tyson zip code, I'm going to go ahead and put 35 miles instead of 50, and I'm going to go ahead and search and see what it says. Okay, so that gives 345,000 people, and I'm actually like pleasantly surprised that most of these people do look like salespeople, and it's got sales right in the title. I thought we were going to see a whole bunch of non-salespeople that just happen to have sales somewhere in their profile, but they weren't actual salespeople. These do look like salespeople. So most of the time, these people who have titles, for example, of director, for example, directors and VPs. So down here, vice president of sales, VP of sales. So director and VP of sales are generally speaking, especially in the beginning, not who you want to target. Those are management professionals. They're not going to want to step back into what's called an individual contributor sales role, which means not managing people, just carrying your own quota and being responsible for your own book of business. Most of them are not going to want to do that. So, these other titles are better right here. Executive sales representative at Paycom, but he's executive sales representative, right? Not executive sales director or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and connect with that guy right now. All right, and then right here, digital sales specialist at CBS Local Digital Media. Without even knowing more, I'm going to go ahead and click connect with that person. And then, so this guy, Bill McNamara, I've known him for years. So, enterprise sales executive. That word executive, because it's after the word sales, he's not a manager. He's a sales guy. So he's a perfect candidate, William McNamara. So when it says sales executive, they're not a manager, generally speaking. Yep. So let me go to page 2. I'm actually trying to find a profile of someone that is not a good candidate for us so that I can tell you why. All right, so you look right here. Here's an example. The Shannon Gray, Senior Fundraising Sales Consultant at Network for Good. So for you, this is going to be pretty confusing in the beginning. That happens to be a salesperson. They just have very funny titles, and they're actually selling a SaaS software. So this is a relevant candidate. But if you saw that, you'd be like, what? But I guess the best way I can try to tip you off to investigate further is that it says these words are together: sales consultant. And so let's open up her profile. So she's definitely a salesperson. And then here's they're not all going to have this, but you see this like 100% attainment, 142% attainment. Those are sales related stuff. People who are not in sales are generally not going to have that. And like rep of the month and stuff like that, that means they're definitely sales. And that's even like, that's stating I'm a hardcore salesperson, basically. So this candidate, this would be, we don't know if she's a good candidate until we interview her, but it's certainly a good prospect and someone that you'd want to target. And she's a 2010 grad, so she fits right in the core space. I don't know her, even though I'm connected, first level connection with her. Okay, so here's another one. This Ambichu fundraising sales consultant. He's same thing. That's like I'm gonna go ahead and connect with him. So that's a person that is someone we want to be speaking to. So all these VP of sales and senior VP of sales, generally speaking, you just want to skip right over and avoid them. So here, this title, sales manager, that's a tricky one. Because it's a more safe bet to find an individual contributor than a sales manager. It's a more safe bet that we can potentially place that person. His title, sales manager, some of the time that means he's managing salespeople. I happen to know this guy. I worked with him before he took this job, and he is not a sales manager. He's just a salesperson, and his title is sales manager. So what I'll tell you is the title of sales manager or regional sales manager or national sales manager, you're going to have to just open up the profile and look. It's going to be hard to know until you get a closer look at the person. This guy's a good example for me to look at with you, because if you look here, he's a 2010 grad. Okay, so he's 6.5, 7 years out. Intern. Okay, so the first thing he did was a recruiting job, and recruiting for an agency like us and like the company that you work with. That's a sales-driven environment, right? So it's not unrelated to sales. So this, that makes someone who's 1, 2, 3 years out of school with recruiting experience is interesting, not only because I have a recruiting role right now, but even if I didn't, it might be someone who wants to switch over into sales, and recruiting is considered almost sales, like kind of sales, right? So he's a recruiter, direct hire recruiter, technical recruiter, then lead recruiter, recruiting manager. All right, so this is starting to sound not good because he's going so far in the direction of recruiting that he's a recruiting manager. Now he's becoming less placeable to us until, ta-da, he switched over a year and a half ago into a sales role at the Nolan Group. So this is the thing that's kind of, hard to explain in simple terms. This is a good candidate for us, and the reason is that even though he's got all these years of recruiting, not all these years, I mean he's only got five years of recruiting, whatever, but then the last year of experience is very relevant. So he got a year and a half of selling. That's actually a SaaS software sale that he's selling right now at Nolan Group. So he is a viable candidate. That's someone we would definitely want to talk to. His name is Harvey Brockington. And just to give you an example, and hopefully this is helpful and not more confusing, if it was in reverse, if he started his career as a sales manager at Nolan Group and then, exactly correct, and then went into recruiting and stayed in recruiting, he'd be a lot less desirable to our clients. All right, let me try to look at one or two more, and then I'm going to ask you if you had any people you saw that you want to chat about, and then I might just talk more in general about stuff. Okay, this is probably a good one. Okay, so she's a 2010 grad. So she's 6 or 7 years of sales experience. Recruiter at Insight Global, that's good. Account executive at Centric Business Systems, that's selling copiers. That's good as long as it's not 10, 15, or 20 years of selling copiers, then it's bad. But for 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 years of selling that, that's good. Then she switched to pharmaceutical sales, and so she's in that for 2.5 years. Then 2 years at Caldera Medical. I don't know what they do, but I'm guessing it's medical devices. Yep. So medical device sales for 2 years, and then the last 1 year is still okay. So she's 3 years at Caldera Medical selling medical devices. She's on the cusp. I wouldn't know until I talked to her, but there's a chance that she would not be a good fit for us. If I was you, I would reach out to her anyway, and then it's really going to boil down to, as weird as this sounds, money. How high has she moved up the salary food chain? If she's moved up to where she's currently got a base salary of, say, $80,000 or more in medical device sales, the only companies that are going to hire her are medical equipment or technology companies and pay her a base salary of 80K plus. A technology client, technology clients of ours are not going to pay her a base of $80,000. So if she's transitioning from that medical devices and pharmaceuticals back into more of the general business to business and or technology sales world, and she is looking for a base salary of between 50 and 60, that could happen, right? Because those positions, there's going to be a lot more flexibility. Like our clients are going to be a lot more prone to saying, okay, she's got, last few years have been pharmaceutical and medical device sales, but you think she's really sharp. All right, I'll meet with her, but what is she looking for in terms of a base salary? And if the answer was 80K, they're going to laugh and get off the phone and say, for 80K, I can get somebody with 7 years of technology sales experience. But if we say, she wants a minimum of 50K, they will absolutely look at her based on that. So that's what's tricky with a person like that. And so if this person was referred to me, I would absolutely get on the phone with her, and I would try to, without being rude, try to figure out as quickly as possible what her current base salary is and what she thinks that she wants moving forward, in order to either say, hey, you're a CMI candidate, now let's do a full-blown interview so I can get to know everything, or hey, you've made it too far up the salary chain to make the switch most likely, so I probably am not the best person suited to help you out. Let me see if I can think of any recruiters that are in the medical device area, and they'd have much better odds getting you a base salary of 80K or greater, given what your background is. So, yes. Yep. Right about here. Great. Great question. So the tenure question of what's good tenure and what's bad tenure is also a little bit fluid, and a lot of that depends on how many years of total experience they have. So this, once again, it's similar to the relevance of the experience, the type of experience is similar with the tenure, in that the more total years of experience they have, the better their tenure has to look recently. It doesn't matter if in the beginning of their career, if they had 7 jobs for 1 year each, but their last 2 jobs were 5 years each, it's fine, right? But if she's got a total of 6 to 7 years experience, so she's got 3 years at Caldera Medical, she's got 2.5 years at Warner Chilcott, and then before that it's a year and a year. Her tenure is technically good at the time frames that matter, which is her current job, she's been there 3 years. That's good. Her prior job, she was there 2.5 years. That's not great, but that's not bad either. And before that, 1.5 years and less than a year is not good, but it doesn't matter. That's now been kind of swallowed up by her good tenure up above that. So now, by contrast, let's go to a person who's got a whole lot more experience. So this guy, okay, so, from what we can see, he started his career around 1984, whether that's, the actual start or not, doesn't matter, but he's got a whole lot more experience. So he's got 30 plus years of experience. So 8 years, those are great, right? Then he's got 2 years, 2 years. Those are not terrible, not great, but not terrible. Then he's got 1 year, 2 years. Now, so his are starting to get a little rougher, and now it's 6 years. So here's the thing. If the really good tenure is the most recent, in my opinion, it makes up for all the bad tenure before that. If the really good tenure is only way back in his career, so let's pretend he doesn't have this 6 year stint at his current company. Instead, he's got like 2 years, 1 year. Let's pretend it was worse than it is right now. He's got 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. It's just like 7 jobs in a row of really low. And then back here, he's got 2 times 8 years. That will not fly so well, because it's looking like he's lost recently. But this guy, he may have been lost in a couple of these jobs, but he's got currently a 6 year stretch, so he's good. But the marketplace is going to be a lot more tough on his tenure than on that prior girl, And the thinking is generally that the earlier you are in your career, you're allowed to make mistakes. You're figuring out what you're good and good at and not good at. You're figuring out what you like and don't like. It's understandable that you're going to make some job changes. The further you get into your career, you should have figured out by that point what you are and what you're not good at. And if you haven't figured that out, then maybe you shouldn't be in sales, and that's why you keep changing jobs. Right? So what I'm going to go back to the thing I said before: 5 years or more, 5 years or less. If they have less than 5 years, bad tenure can be worked with pretty easily, right? If they have more than 5 years, it's more difficult, and if they have 20 years or more, then it's really, really hard. But the most recent tenure is the largest dictator of how easy or difficult it's going to be to get that person in front of clients. So by the way, there's tons of vice presidents of sales and directors of sales in this list, and I think that's because I used a keyword sales instead of something in the title. And also, vice president of sales or director of sales are very common titles. Sales executive or sales account manager is less common. So salespeople more commonly have something like account manager, account executive, and sales managers more often are called VP of sales or director of sales or whatever. So, so let's see as I go through here. Okay, this guy right here. So regional sales manager at Netuitive. Yeah, as I suspected, I think we actually placed this guy at his company. But so as I suspected, he's got a title there of regional sales manager. He's not managing anyone. He's a salesperson. So if it's the word manager instead of director or VP, that's the one that could mean either way. And so, for example, down here at Dell, he's got sales manager at Dell. So he was seeking and retaining organizations for backup and discovery in a given territory. That's selling. That's not managing. And then and then the position above that, regional sales manager at Dell, he's got responsible for building office division, ground up sales, managing. Yep. Okay. So this is going to be super confusing, but I can tell you that at Dell is a very weird structure, and there's people who are what are called player coaches. And a player coach, and that is an important term for you to probably remember. A player coach is someone who both sells and manages. And player coaches are good. We have a decent chance of placing player coaches. And that's going to be generally hard to tell. Yeah, so the reason why I can tell this with him is because I know Dell so well, and I know what their model was. The people who were acquired through the acquisition of Aperture Software, which is down here, Dell acquired them, and so I just know that model already. But also, if I look here, he's got managing 15 plus employees, and then he says while carrying an individual quota. So that's one tip off that he's a player coach. The other, even if he didn't say that, let's say he didn't say while carrying an individual quota, it does say right in this last thing, awarded top sales rep in a quarter twice in one calendar year. So that's somebody who's still selling if they're being awarded with the top sales rep award or whatever. So, so I guess how helpful is all this? Is this all kind of making sense and adding? Okay, cool. So I'm going to try to look at just one more real quick. And I do want to know if you ran into any other profiles. I know you showed me a couple, but ran into any profiles that made you curious. Okay, Federal Sales Director. All right, so here we go. We got this guy who's got a title of Regional Sales Manager, Enterprise at Splunk. So I don't know. I'm going to go open his profile and try to figure it out. Okay, Splunk is a leading platform. Okay, so you can't tell, right? Because it's got that title, and then it just tells you what the company does. It doesn't tell you what he's doing. So we don't know if he's in sales or management. So now I'm going to go to his prior job, and I'm going to use that to tell me. So technology sales manager, as we said, the phrase sales manager doesn't tell us whether or not he's a manager or a individual contributor. All right, duties, help customers increase. Boom, that's sales. So he's in sales in this prior job for 3.5 years. So there's a very good chance that he's still in sales now, and that when he left Oracle, he was in sales, and when he started here, he remained in sales. So this is probably a sales role and not a management role. I saw before a title I wanted to point out to you. Okay, see down here, Edgar Rosales, inside sales representative. Those people are very placeable for us. So a person with a title of inside sales representative is, generally speaking, someone that we have clients that would typically be interested in. All right, so let's look at him for a second. So he's Northern Virginia Community College, so he does not have a 4-year degree. That's not a total death knell. We have some clients that will hire people who don't have 4-year degrees. We have lots who won't, but we have some who will. 4-year degree is better, but honestly, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't pay attention to it. That's a criteria that will get you bogged down, and I'd worry about it after you find a great salesperson who doesn't have a college degree, and we worry about it then. So I wouldn't have that be a big criteria. But if you look at his years, 2012 to 2015, so now we're trying to take a guess at what his real full-time work experience is, because he's got sales at Costco, sales at Apple through 2012, but it looks like his real post-college experience starts here. So Front Point, and that's a year and 3 months, and then Immix Group, a year and 2 months. So tenure looks bad, right? 1 year, 3 months, 1 year, 2 months. But if you're thinking of him as a 2015 grad, then that tenure is fine. We can work with that. Yep. So we kind of treat those as nothing, and say here's a 2015 grad, but he started working 2014, so fine. Here's a guy with 2.5 years of total work experience, and he's got bad tenure. No problem, because he's under that 5-year mark. When I say no problem, I'm exaggerating a little bit. I'm just trying to make the point that that's the reason why if this guy wanted to talk to me, I would still be happy to talk to him. Now, he's got a title of inside sales representative. If you get a title, this is kind of just a weird thing to have in the back of your head, I guess. If you get somebody with a title of inside sales representative that is 35 years into their work experience, that's probably tougher. Because if somebody's 35 years into if somebody's 25 years into their working experience and they haven't graduated into a field sales role, that probably means they're not in the top half of what they do. So, nothing's firm and concrete and the same all the time, but that's just, something to keep in the back of your head. So in terms of the sales cycle, if you think of sales as the front end is prospecting or cold calling, so identifying a prospect, and the next stage being qualifying that prospect, and the next stage being presenting a product or service, and the last stage being closing. There are a whole group of people in roles that we call lead generation roles, but that's never their title. Their titles are generally something like business development representative, sales development representative. It might be sales associate or like associate sales rep. And these are generally people with probably somewhere like 6 months to 3 years of total experience. Those people who have been doing lead generation are valuable candidates to us. We have clients, number one, that actually have lead generation sales roles and would like those people. But we also have some clients that will look at the people who have not done the full sales cycle and be willing to put them into a full cycle sales role, which is what most of those people want. So going back to when I described that, 4 parts to the sale, part 1 is identification of a prospect, part 2 is qualifying, part 3 is presenting, and part 4 is closing. These lead generation people who are business development representatives or sales development representatives are the most common titles for that. They're generally doing parts 1 and 2. They're doing identification of the prospect and a little bit of qualifying that prospect. So first identifying them and then saying, hey, well, can you tell me a little bit about what your company's current situation is? And those are valuable candidates to us, as are the people who have been doing the full life cycle of sales are obviously also strong candidates for us. And in the software sales world, a sales force is generally made up of those lead generation people and then kind of a first level of sales reps who probably sell to the kind of small to mid-market space. And those people are in inside sales, even though that's not their title. They're going to an office every day and doing their position in an office. They're not driving around and meeting with customers. Most of the time they are driving sales from phone and web demos and things like that. And um, and then you graduate up into field sales, which is substantially higher compensation, and those people are in outside sales roles, and they generally travel 25 to 50% of the time into their territory and meet with customers face to face. And anywhere on that food chain, the lead gen person, the lower level salesperson, and the more senior level salesperson, they're all candidates that we need kind of all the time if they've got a software sales background. And we place both federal and commercial software salespeople. And so some of those industries that if it's less than 5 years, it's fine, and we would like to talk to them. We can probably use them. And if it's more than 5 years, it's a lot trickier. Some of those industries are some that we covered here, like pharmaceutical sales, medical device sales, the mortgage business, real estate, somebody who's been selling for like a consumer products organization. So somebody who's been selling for like Mars or Kohler or Ferguson. Kohler, like, makes like sinks and bathtubs and all that stuff, and Ferguson makes plumbing equipment. Or if they've been selling like building supplies. All these industries that have nothing to do with technology, if they have less than 5 years, the odds that we can place them into the technology world are pretty decent, as long as they're, they have good presentation, they're articulate, they're motivated, they have sales DNA, all that stuff. If they have greater than 5, and the more years greater than 5, the less likely we can. So as an example would be like a mortgage loan officer with 15 years or more of experience. I don't think that we've ever placed in 19 years of doing this. So that's a virtual no-go, not possible at all. That's kind of the landscape. And so, like, and then we have this little side niche that is not really intentional, which is in the staffing industry, people who sell staffing and people who do recruiting, especially IT recruiting, for an agency, not in the corporate world. And agency means that they're recruiting for their customers instead of themselves. And corporate is somebody who's a corporate recruiter, like for Oracle or IBM or GE or whatever. So we always have a little bit of demand for those people, and I've got a whole lot of customers. So if we get somebody good, I can always call some old customers and market candidates there. But also people with, IT recruiting or staffing sales experience that is, 5 years or less. It's the same thing as everything else. Now they've got some sales experience, and now we're going to help them transition into technology sales. So I think that's kind of my best way of trying to give an overall landscape of what we do and who we target when we're not targeting for a real specific position. And maybe in our next conversation, we'll start talking about like what questions that you would that you'll start asking. We'll start you out kind of slow, and maybe even the very first couple of people who agree to speak to you, then we'll do a 3-way call with you and me and that person, and I'll run the call, but you'll hear the whole thing. And then the next time maybe you'll ask like a few questions, and then I'll take over after that, and we'll kind of transition it over to where you're running the whole thing. I do. Yep. I want you to get into the habit right away of finding these people, and then if you can get connected to them, you can get an email. But if not, there's a certain amount of them that you'll be able to send an email to, or you'll be able to use Contact Out and get some of their email addresses that way. And I'm going to send you a few templates that you can use, and I would like you to go ahead and start reaching out, because if anyone says, sure, let's talk, that'll be a great problem to have, and let's figure it out, when the time comes. And then as we go over the next few days, I might also give you more specifics, like, hey, based on where we are today, keep your eyes open for this background, but generally speaking, look for the core space. And secondly, I guess if I feel like I want you to change up the template that you're sending originally. But what you're definitely initially trying to do is just test out, is there any interest in talking in order to explore what other opportunities are out there. And okay, awesome. Oh, Sales Navigator. So Sales Navigator, it's a shame because I don't have that. So I have Recruiter Lite, which is I just clicked on that. And have you ever seen it? Okay, use LinkedIn Recruiter. Okay, so I have Recruiter Lite, which is the same thing. The only difference is that it doesn't integrate with all the other people in the office. It's basically like just my own little recruiter, and I get a no. The sales actually doesn't either. But the Sales Navigator accomplishes roughly the same thing, but it's cleaner because when you're in Recruiter, it actually doesn't let you click connect. You actually have to go look at their public profile in order to connect with them. And that's because LinkedIn's trying to discourage you from connecting with everybody because then you need LinkedIn, you need their enhanced services less. The more connections you have, the less you need their enhanced services. So Sales Navigator would be, so if I go up here and I hover over business services and then I go to sales solutions, Sales Navigator should be in here. Okay. Yeah, and so that I believe that the first month is start your free trial. So I believe that the first month is free. And let me see, sales lead generation. Oh, really? Huh. Okay. Interesting. Well, yeah, because you see right now it's got the Sales Navigator Professional, which you would not want to do Sales Navigator Team. So you got the Sales Navigator Professional, and you got the monthly plan for $80. Yeah, so I wonder if you click on buy this plan. I thought that. Yeah, okay, okay. Let me see. Plan begins renews automatically March 16th, 2017. Okay. Yeah, but we have had people get one free month, and I don't understand why I'm not. Maybe they stopped doing it. It might be that. Okay. Okay. Cool. And so yeah, I want you to start connecting with as many people as possible, but also going ahead and sending messages both on LinkedIn and via email. And again, I'm going to send you a couple of templates, and you can tweak them and do whatever you want with those templates. But they're just some ideas to start with. And then the second someone says yes, I'd like to talk, then you and I are going to confer and figure out when to have a three-way call. All right, so let's start with that, and then I'll get back to you, possibly as soon as tomorrow, but I'll get back to you with a couple of specific searches as well. But I really like the idea first of you using the general core profiles of 1 to 10 years of business-to-business technology, related sales, and/or federal software sales, and reaching out to as many of those as possible. And the last thing I'll say in terms of the search and what you're looking for is that there are some companies that are resellers that are less appealing candidates if they're federal salespeople. So one of those is a company called the Imix Group. So you can see this. Why is it not coming up? Maybe I have to do the Imix Group or something. I don't know why it's not recognizing right now. It's weird. Okay. Oh, here we go. Imix Group, 201 to 500 employees. So these will look to you like federal salespeople. They're not totally unplaceable, but basically the most placeable of these people would be people who have less than 5 years of experience for sure. Um, so you no, yeah, if they're no, sorry, it would have to be less than 5 years. So yeah, so okay, I'm looking at one right now. Alyssa Hanna here, account manager 2 at Imix Group. So she's a 2015 grad from Old Dominion, and she's been working a year and a half at Imix Group. That's a viable candidate for us because that reseller business, which the main reseller companies are like Imix Group, DLT Solutions is another one. Let me see if it comes up. Yeah, here it is. DLT Solutions is another one, and probably the largest one is called Carasoft. Um, maybe they're similar size, but and people from all three of those companies, which are federal resellers, the people from there who are good are pretty much, or not good. The people from there who are placeable for us are probably only the ones with less than 5 years of experience. Generally speaking, that's the case. That's the last thing I'll say about like profiles within our core space. And then I'm going to go non-core space with you sometime either tomorrow or Monday and tell you about some very specific searches I'm working on that would, might not show up in your general core space searches. And then I'll also work on the whole list of prior placements issue, and we can go from there. All right. Well, great chatting with you. I look forward to seeing who we can get in the pipeline and taking everything from there. All right, sounds good. Talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.